Welcome everyone to our special Unlocked edition of our Full Lock series presented by DSPORT. And joining me here are our 4 stars for our 2012 Full Lock season. I'd like to introduce Ken Gushi, Daigo Saito, Tyler McQuarrie, and Dai Yoshihara. Yeah, 2 of you guys are running V8 power, and 2 of you guys are running supercharged 6 cylinders. How much does that play into it? Is having a V8, do you think it just makes the car a little bit more predictable, easier to drive?
I think predictable, easier to drive. But, you know, this year, like, especially Daigo brought 2JZ with, like, over 1,000 holes. So it's really hard for me to keep up, even on a straight, you know? And I'm sure you have the same problem. So VA doesn't really, like, advantage out of those guys anymore, I think.
Well, that's what you guys think. What do you guys think?
Come on. So this is the thing about running a turbocharged 4-cylinder, right? So we're constantly running the car at 120% as to where these guys, I mean, not pointing fingers or anything, but the V8 guys, looking at like throttle data, they're on throttle way less than I am. I mean, I'm constantly on a throttle 100%, while these guys are like, 40%, 60%, 40%, 60%. So they're easier on the cars, they're easier on the motors. So to beat one of those cars, I have to drive it at like 150%.
Now, Ken, you joined us this year. This is your first year driving the Scion FRS, and one of the reasons why we wanted to follow you. Tell us about the experience of starting off a new season with a brand new car.
It wasn't just the car that was new. It was the whole team, the chemistry, the whole experience was going to be new for me. I mean, this is going to be the first year working with Gritty Performance.
Now, Tyler, you also had an interesting experience this year. Did you actually have to buy a new team to be out there and racing this year? What's the whole story behind that?
During the off season, a bunch of things happened as far as me running with Gardella, and I ended up buying the team. And I think there was definitely a transition for me getting used to running the team and then flipping that switch to go drive. This is the first year since I think 2005 that I haven't finished on the podium at least once. So that's a tough pill to swallow for me as a driver. And so I want to switch that for next year for sure.
Now, our 2011 champion, Dai, tell us about this season. You came back, same car, same team. What was kind of the strategy at the beginning of the season, and how did it play out?
Winning 2011 championship was great. That was my dream of like 8 years, luckily, I'm starting with the same team, same car, everything. So there's no excuse that I have a package that I can win the championship. So pretty much I was gonna do the same thing again, but it wasn't that easy.
Daigo Saito, this was the first year he joined us from Formula D Asia, D1GP. Tell us about your experience. What was it like knowing you'd be racing this year in Formula D?
今年フォーミュラ D 出れることになって、で、そこから車をまず日本で作って、で送ることにしたんですけど、車やっぱり送るのもギリギリになって、で、テストもできずに送って、で初めてテストしたのがもうLong Beach.
Now, the Long Beach event was a little bit unique in that, we picked you 4 guys as our drivers, and little did we know you'd all be racing against each other at Long Beach. Daigo and Tyler, you guys raced each other in the round of 8. What was your thoughts going into it?
When I got matched up with Daigo, I've never run with him. Have heard a lot of stuff about how he drives, obviously very good at what he does. And the one impact area for Long Beach is right underneath the bridge. That was the one area I needed to do something pretty big, and I tried to do something way too big and just over-rotated and, collected Daigo.
Now, also at Long Beach, Dai, you had to face Ken again, and there's, some history there from the previous year where Ken beat you in...
in Arundel.
Top 16.
Yeah, top 16.
So how much does that play in your mind going into it?
I knew, Ken was having a 4th year with the new car and everything, so I know I have more advantage going into the round.
And I remember at that event, Ken, you were having some problems keeping the wing on the car, if I remember right.
Before Long Beach, actually, that was the idea, was that, we would have this big wing that would stick out way behind the car so that if I do happen to get close to a wall, the car doesn't have to be as close, but the wing makes it look like it's pretty close, and it would hopefully trigger the proximity sensors, but...
Isn't that cheating?
Is it? I don't know. It's part of the car. I mean, it's hardware.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, getting a little off topic here, but cheating. All forms of racing involve some degree of cheating, or at least looking at the rules and trying to get, a little bit of an advantage on the competition. Anything you guys saw this year that pops out at you?
I've heard like illegal weight ballasts.
And per the Formula D rules, you're only allowed a certain amount of weight for ballast, and then these guys might be using more than that in order to... Got it.
It's more important now with the tire to weight rule. That rule is intended so you can't make your car very, very light.
Are there drivers out there that you're just like, oh crap, him again?
Oh, all of those guys.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is, nowadays, especially this year, it's not easy. It doesn't matter where you finish in a qualifying session. You just have to assume that this guy is really good.
Qualifying this year, too, it's like there's people all over the place. And I think it stems from how the speed score is set.
Arwindale, I couldn't hit the speed, so I lost 10 points. And my point was 82 point something, and I placed 17th. But if I hit the speed, I could have placed second place, so which is big difference.
And mind you, he was only off by 0.5 miles an hour or something. So that's not really much of a difference.
It's definitely a flaw in the scoring system. It shouldn't be like that. You should get 5 points for getting close to it or something, some kind of scale down, because all or nothing creates stuff like that.
Now, speaking of qualifying, Daigo, this year in qualifying, you haven't done too well. Why is that?
初めて走るコースばっかりで、なかなか練習時間だけだとうまくまとめられなくて、で、だんだん予選とか決勝、追走やりながらだんだんできるようになっていった感じです、今年は。
Okay, but if you're going to blame it on being your first season and the first time seeing these courses, does that mean next year we're going to see good qualifying times from you?
成績以下は分かんないですけど、もう少しやりやすいですね。知ってるコースなんで。
So at Atlanta, I thought a really interesting match was between you and Jun Meng.
On our first run with June, we had a clean run, and coming through the last corner, my car dies as I'm passing the clipping point. And so before we get to the exit, it straightens up and the fuel pump shut off. We get towed up, we call 5 minutes, and the Bergenholtz guys, as many of you know, are just an awesome group of guys. They came over and helped Scott and Moose get the car running. And we're competing against those guys. It's like a testament to drifting right there. We get that back going, and June comes down there just hauling the mail, huge angle, and crosses the apex curb and drops 2 wheels off on driver's right before the transition going back up the hill. But he then goes off the other side of the track and somehow maintains his drift up the top of the hill. They said that I passed him illegally, which according to the rules, of course I did, but am I supposed to follow a car off the track? That's where, at some point, if that's a wall, he would have crashed and you would have continued and just gone on your way.
Daigo, I'd like to ask your opinion because, coming from racing in other series and different rules, how would that have been handled in D1GP?
D1 でも毎回ジャッジも多少人が変わったりするんで、その時にならないと分かんないですけど、多分僕が見た感じだとあれはしょうがないと思います。
Coming out of Atlanta, we moved into Palm Beach, and Palm Beach, that's when we got to see Justin Pollock up close. A little bit of a incident, I should say, with Daigo. What do you remember about that, Daigo?
まず予選、すごく順位が僕低かったんですけど、最初のコーナーがワイドに行ってないっていうのが結構引かれてたみたいで、そこを気をつけるようにしようと思ってて、で追走でジャスティン、最初僕、後追いだったんですけど、結構大きくミスして、で、先行で取り返さなくちゃいけないなと思ってでワイドに行こうと思ったらちょっと行き過ぎちゃってで失敗してでただそれにつられてというかジャスティン合わせきれないでスピンしちゃったみたいなんで、それジャッジの判断で僕が勝った感じですね。
Now, Dai, you got to race Justin in the consolation round out there. It looked like you know, from getting so emotional with the situation with Daigo and stuff, might have played into his mind and affected his performance. Do you think that was a factor, and does your emotions ever play into how well you drive?
For sure, I think emotion is really a big part of drifting. I don't think I was doing that good in that round, and Justin was actually doing better than I was doing it, but he spun out at the last corner, and I moved on. I mean, I was getting third place.
Okay, so moving on to New Jersey. New Jersey, yeah, Tyler, that was a great event for you, huh?
The infamous run with Chelsea was an interesting one. He led first, and he did something on his entry that was just so bizarre and just really, really slow. I think he grabbed the e-brake a couple of times. He said that he definitely did something different because he gripped up a little bit. So at that point, they kind of gave me the advantage because they also talked in the driver's meeting about not switching up your entry. Whatever you're doing, you can't switch it.
Now, was that in response to Daigo at the previous event?
I think so. I think a little bit, you know, because there's definitely different entries there, and they just want everyone to be consistent, so when you go up against someone, you know what to expect. And on my lead run, you know, I did that little feint, and it got me down on the bank a little too much. I got into the wall, and then, you know, a second later, Chelsea came in and hit the same spot. It was clear his car was done. I thought he was going to move on. They get the car back to the pits, and soon enough, they said that we were moving on, and we were all just like, you gotta be kidding me. You know, they went back to the first run where they said I had the advantage, and they said, you know, the two crashes were separate crashes. We crashed in the same spot, different times. But it definitely, we were shocked when we got the call, and then we met up with Dai.
Mm-hmm. That race, do you remember it?
Yeah, that was crazy. I was.
Do you remember me coming up in the burnout area?
He just smoked me, and wow. But yeah, anyways, it was unbelievable that he came back in really 10-15 minutes.
So talk about meeting up with Daigo for the second time. Met up with him once at Long Beach, and now you see him again in New Jersey.
Having battle with Daigo is one of the big things this year because he's for sure one of the best drifter in the world. And luckily I won Long Beach, but Jersey, I'm sure he was getting used to the car and the series and everything. And for sure he had a better proximity than I did to him. I think his line was kind of all over. His angle was a little bit a lot of corrections and stuff. So that was the reason why I could beat him.
Okay, now moving into Seattle. Seattle, Tyler, you don't qualify there. Why not?
We had some issues with the motor there. Just didn't have the power, so we were dialing out grip on the bank. My first run just got into the outside clipping point on the bank just a little bit, and it straightened up the car, and I continued on. So they gave me a 0, and that's the worst in qualifying. Getting a 0 on your first run where it all is on the second. And so my second run, you know, I hit all the clipping points. I got the speed. You know, I came in and I'm like, okay, that's like a 75, 78, something like that. And they came back and said like 64. I don't know how they came up with that score. I think I got kind of screwed on it. So yeah, we didn't make it, which was a huge deal to not make it.
Ken, you did pretty well. That was one of your better finishes this year. Did anything change there? Or did you change the car or the setup? Or why did you do better at Seattle?
Seattle was probably the first round where we actually had the car dialed in near 100%. Unfortunately, we didn't have a motor that would last us through the event. And starting from the top 16, our motor was getting weaker and weaker. So by the time we hit the top 4 against Reese, I was probably down 150 to 200 horsepower, and ended up losing against him in the top 4. And overall, the Grady guys just set up the car really good for me for that round.
Okay, now moving to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, obviously, it was not the best round for any of you guys.
It wasn't too fluid. I don't know what you guys think.
I think you're the same way. We don't really like the parking lot kind of track, right?
As far as parking lot events go, I really don't have a preference. I mean, I'll drive on anything.
Now, between the Las Vegas event and coming into Irwindale, obviously you guys look at where you are in the points chase and start making some decisions there on your strategy going into it. Tyler, coming into that event at 17th, what goes through your head? Are you just looking to end the season on a high note, or is there anything strategy-wise you're thinking?
I mean, at that point, being 17th in points is the lowest I've ever been. I wasn't even thinking of the championship at that point. I was just coming into Irwindale, winning it last year. I wanted to end my season like I did last year and give myself some motivation during the off season. But that's all I really want to do, is get a good result for the team, all the sponsors, just everyone involved with it. They deserve it.
Ken, coming in the 8th spot, I'm sure your focus is on trying to move up or stay there and at least having that top 10 finish for the year. Does that play a big role in your strategy?
Being in the single digit ranking going into Irwindale was a huge deal for our team, and we wanted to make sure that we stayed in the top 10 and if not further go into the higher rankings. But we were far away from the championship points anyway, so we didn't really worry about the championship points. We just wanted to make sure we finished in the top 10 with a strong finish and hopefully get on the podium for Irwindale.
Now, Dai, mathematically, this had to happen, that had to happen. It wasn't all in your control. What was your strategy coming in number 5?
Well, there's no strategy. I just wanted to do well, and then especially this year, I didn't won the event, so I really wanted to win it. But I guess Irwindale was basically my nemesis. I just can't do well, so there's a lot to work on next year.
Now, Daigo, you came into the finals in the number 2 spot. Did you have a certain strategy going in, or was it just, I'll try to do my best and see what happens?
アウィンデールの前に、今年2回目のテストができて、で車はちょっといろいろまた変えたりできて乗りやすくなって、でただアウィンデールあんまりうまくは走れなくて失敗も多かったんですけど、最終的にはいい成績が出ました。
超ラッキーだよね。
超ラッキー。
Also, I think he said he was lucky, right? But the other driver was really trying hard because they know Daigo can drive well. So that's part of your, it's lucky, but at the same time, they're trying hard because of him, So that's part of his, I don't know how to say, skill.
Now, Von Gittin, goes into the event in the number 1 spot. Round of 16, he goes out. You've been in a similar situation.
Yes.
It was Irwindale last year.
Yeah, that was really sucked.
You're sitting there and you're starting to root for different drivers because you want to win the championship. It's totally out of your hands. Talk about that a little bit.
Basically, you have to wait for someone else's to take mistake. It's not really cool, It worked out and I won the championship last year, but at the moment...
Who helped you with that?
Tyler.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
So I beat Dai, and then Tyler beat me.
Yeah.
I see.
But yeah, it's not cool, At the moment, I was happy, but at the same time, I was really frustrated. Yeah. So he won the way, the ideal situation. He won the event and he won the championship. That's perfect winning, I think.
That's the best way to end the season.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't think people realize how hard it is for a rookie to come into a series that he's never driven before, never been on the track in any of these rounds, and just clean us all out. He just came in and swept through the competition.
Do you think the fan base is getting more educated as far as knowing which car won?
I think they're doing a good job of at least trying to get the word out of what they're, because it changes event to event what they're looking for.
It's getting better now, but the consistency of the judging, I think it needs to be addressed a little bit better.
And I think they do a good job of trying to get that out. But like Ken was saying, the consistency is what makes it confusing, I think.
Anything else?
I love DSPORT models.
Okay. So we'll be inviting you to all of the model shoots for this season.
Thanks for doing this. I think it was cool. Yeah, having you guys follow us all year.
Thank you guys for participating. And thank you everybody for joining us on the unlocked edition of Full Lock for our 2012 season here, presented by DSPORT. And look forward to seeing you guys next year. Yes. All right.